Kicking off our final show of the week here, Friday here, broadcasting live from the Skywalk in downtown Des Moines. That's Downtown, the tune by Andy Fleming and Brother Trucker. I want to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club and also Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility and the Great March for Climate Action for sponsoring the program. And we got some ground to cover today, including we're going to have a visit in the studio from Mandy Hillman to talk about the Rally to Improve Birth. Appropriately, that rally is on Labor Day, and there are lots of issues to be addressed. That's going to be at the state capitol from 10 to noon on Labor Day. We're also going to talk a little bit about, Eric Branstad in trouble again. Jack Hatch launching a gubernatorial campaign. The NFL in big trouble, having to pay, close to $1 billion because of injuries relevant to injuries that have led to Alzheimer's and other diseases. That's totally news to me, but I have some thoughts on it. Good news for the Des Moines farmers market. Bad news for Branstad in terms of his lack of any responsiveness on the judicial nominating issue and the incredible blatant sexism that seems to be happening in that process. And also a little bit to discuss on the war in Syria. A lot of little stuff to cover, but first, the big one, immigration reform. This is an issue getting more and more attention, as it should. And despite efforts by some in the Republican Party to try to get Republicans to understand the importance of reaching out to one of the U.S.'s fastest growing constituency groups, they don't seem to get it. There's still a lot of foot dragging, a lot of crazy talk from the likes of Steve King. And people are pushing back and pushing forward. Recently in Ames, in Steve King's district, there was a rally to challenge him on the things he said that made national news that were, in my opinion, not just an embarrassment to him, but to Iowa. The comment about calves the size of melons, about for every one valedictorian that sneaks across the border, there are 100 drug smugglers. I mean, just crazy talk with no basis in fact or science or evidence. And yet he seems to continue to do this and get away with it. And I commend the people who organized the event in Ames to challenge him on this. And I commend all those who are working to try to achieve some bipartisan approach to immigration reform. And I'm delighted to have a few people joining us for this conversation today, folks who have been outspoken for a while and have been helping to elevate the intelligence of the dialogue in stark contrast to what our congressman from Western Iowa seems inclined to do. First, joining me on line one is Antonia, someone I don't know, but you can highly recommend as someone who has personal experience with the DREAM Act. Antonia, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, and you're calling us from where?
I'm in Ankeny.
Okay. And you are what is often referred to as a, quote, dreamer.
Yes.
Right. And tell me a little bit about your situation.
Well, I've been in the United States since 1988. I was 6 years old at the time. I came with my sister, my little sister, and my mom. Mm-hmm. And I'm now currently 31. Since then, I've graduated from the university. It's almost going to be like 10 years now. And recently, I got my work authorization.
You got what?
My work authorization.
Okay. Oh, your work authorization.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So are you on track to become a U.S. citizen?
No, definitely not.
No. You'd like to be?
I would.
What's keeping that from happening?
Well, right now, the only way that I could become a U.S. citizen would be some sort of pathway, which the only one that would be available for me would be like if I were to get married or if for some reason my parents were to petition me. Another one would be for my younger siblings, one of which just turned 18 to petition me. So right now there really doesn't seem to be much out there for me. So
again, the immigration reform bill keeps changing form a bit, but in some of its manifestations, it would help somebody in your situation, correct?
It would.
Yeah.
It would speed up the process.
Right. And there seems to be a declining number of people who oppose that. I mean, even in Steve King's own congressional district, the vast majority, 65 or 68%, depending on how you ask the question, over 2/3 of the voters in that district supports some type of pathway to citizenship or to legal status. So it seems like the public is coming around on this. And I don't know what else it's going to take to get our U.S. representatives to come around on this. Any thoughts on that?
I think a lot of it has, I'm glad the public's finally, there's a little bit more support. But I also think a lot more people need to come out of the shadows. I know in the last decade, slowly dreamers have started becoming more and more outspoken, probably because we've grown up here. We kind of learned to speak up.
But there's a lot of risk in coming out of the shadows. The most serious being deportation.
Well, yes,
right?
But I think for as dreamers, I think we suffer enough already. So I don't think that's like the biggest risk for us. I think it's more like a risk for our parents,
Okay.
But I think it would take also like for our parents to, like, as far as like a bigger immigration reform bill for our parents to come out and be like, you know what, I need it because this and this and that. Right?
So when you say you suffered enough already, what do you mean by suffered?
There's a lot of emotional damage that is done, and people don't realize that. There are people who post mean comments, and they're like, just go back.
Like the fellow who had the sign. Wasn't there a guy with a sign at the Ames event who said referenced the war, the war with Mexico? You lost, we won. Now go home. I mean, isn't that
exactly.
that sort of thing has got to be a little hurtful?
Oh, it is, because you know what? It's kind of hard to go back to a home where you don't really know.
Yeah, you were there when you were 6, right?
Sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And plus, it's very dangerous to live there, just to travel around. It's not the same as back then.
Right.
And plus, we have there are a lot less opportunities to survive out there, especially like as a farmer, because now you have like the NAFTA, and you have like all these agreements, all these businesses like Walmart or places that have gone over there.
You got Walmart down there now?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
They have a lot of things over there, and it's harder for little businesses to compete with that. So I mean, all those things plus the recent violence there just make it kind of hard for people to survive.
Well, Antonia, I really appreciate you taking the time to call, and I wish you the best of luck. And again, I commend you on being unafraid to speak out. Thank you.
Okay.
And if you'd like to stay on hold, you're welcome to do that. You can, if you need to go, that's fine too. But I'm going to move on to another caller. And again, I do want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's go to Sandra Sanchez. Sandra is with the American Friends Service Committee. She's on line 2, and welcome to the program, Sandra.
Thank you, Ed. How are you doing?
Good. Now, you've been a long-time advocate for immigration reform.
Yes.
And this is not for you personally, because you have your citizenship status is in place.
Yes.
Yeah. But you've seen a lot of changes. I mean, I remember being at a rally with you back in 2006, I believe.
That's right.
And it was the largest rally I'd ever been at in Des Moines. 5,000 people packed into Nolan Plaza.
That's correct. It was about 6,000.
6,000. Well,
people. Yes.
Yeah. And we thought there was such momentum at that time.
Yes.
And even President Bush was talking the right talk. We were moving in the right direction. We had a bunch of Republican U.S. senators who also understood the importance of reform. And then the whole thing came tumbling down. And a lot of people blame right-wing radio. The Rush Limbaughs, Glenn Beck's, the rhetoric that they used and the way that they fired up their listeners to inundate the U.S. Capitol switchboard with calls, providing perspectives that were really not rational, but still had a big influence on those Republican senators and on the president. So is this going to be any different this time? Are we in a different time and place where we are not going to see this problem?
I think that we are not seeing that problem, because I believe that most Americans now are better educated on the issue, thanks to the efforts that we have continued through the years since 2006. However, what I believe that is holding this back is the reticence from the U.S. House of Representatives to address the issue. And I am very concerned that they are not understanding. To me, it seems to me that they are afraid that all these aspiring citizens will move to the Democratic Party when the time comes, if they grant them a roadmap to citizenship. But that is not correct. Actually, that is a faulty thinking, because if they do it, if they do a bipartisan approach to this, and they pass this immigration bill in a bipartisan way, they will have basically equal opportunity with that potential citizenry. So I believe that they need to change their thinking and to act upon this bill, because they have the opportunity to do so and to show leadership on it.
And I think there are some leaders in the Republican Party who totally get that. And then you have the Steve King wing of the U.S. Congress.
Yes, but they are a very small minority. I really don't understand why they have such influence on the large majority of Republicans.
But they're a big enough block. They're, 80 votes in Congress? That's a big enough block in a chamber of 435 to prevent a lot of things from happening.
But I believe that people like Representative Tom Latham, I believe that he can do a lot to change the minds of people, of his colleagues, to do the right thing.
But his Latham's rhetoric is, of course, nothing is not the crazy talk we hear from Steve King. But is his voting record that different?
Absolutely, and that is
so. It is his voting record is better.
No, his voting record. Okay. Well, let me put it this way. We had visited with him. He has said that he's very understanding of the Dreamers' plight, but he is not extending that same understanding to all the undocumented immigrants. Work with taxes and with cultural and the social fabric of this nation. And particularly in this state, if it wasn't for immigrants, we would have lost 2 congressional seats, not one, because we would have a lost net of population. So I believe that he's saying one thing when he's meeting with people, but he's not really committed or clear. He hasn't stated a clear commitment to do that. And we really are seeking for his leadership. I think that it will show that he has not only the guts, but the leadership and the vision to take this district to the future.
Yeah, well, that would be nice. It would be a nice change.
I hope that he's listening, and I hope that he can change his mind and decide clearly to be that leader among his colleagues.
Well, and this might become a more heated conversation in his campaign, because one of the 2 Democrats running to take him on in the general election is a Latino, Gabriel de la Cerda. Gabriel's family has been in the U.S. 2 generations longer than mine. So even though he has a Latin name, and people may assume, well, he's from Mexico, just crossed the border. No, he's been here 5 generations. You know?
Yes, I know.
Yeah. So maybe that'll help Latham think a bit about the issue more.
Who knows? But the important thing here is that he's right now representing us in Congress, and we as voters, as constituents of his district, are asking for more leadership from him, because we know that he can have that influence among them, because we believe that he is right in the middle. You know, he's not an extremist like King. So we are not expecting much from King, definitely, and we are not going to waste much of our time other than to denounce that his words have absolutely no basis, and that they are an offense not only to the office that he's holding in Congress, but an offense to the whole state of Iowa, because that really doesn't represent the large majority of Iowans.
So how many people turned out for the rally in Ames in response to King's comments?
Oh, I understand that it was close to 200 people. So it was very well attended, and actually the issue that dominated the whole conversation was definitely immigration. Another town hall meeting that was held in Ankeny was also dominated by the issue of immigration. That was with Tom Latham. So I believe that he's hearing enough. We delivered almost 450 postcards with signatures of constituents from his district asking him to support immigration reform with a roadmap to citizenship. So we believe that we are doing our part, and now it's time for him to do his part.
Yeah. Well, Sandra, thank you so much for joining us. Sandra Sanchez is with the American Friends Service Committee. Sandra, I'm going to go to one more call from Nick Harrington. If you'd like to stay on hold, you're welcome to do that.
You bet.
I can only take one call at a time without losing clarity of the sound.
No problem.
Thank you. Let's go to Nick. Nick Harrington, welcome to the program.
Hi, how are you?
Good, and I know you're one of our labor leaders in the state. I can't remember which local you're with.
United Food and Commercial Workers, Local 222 out of Sioux City.
Good. And this is an issue. Well, I mean, that's King's your congressman as well. Congratulations. How is there are some? I know some rank and file labor union members will buy that rhetoric that says, hey, these people are coming to take our jobs and we want them gone. And yet, overall, labor unions have been pretty emphatically on the side of immigration reform. Is that a tension within your movement? And if so, how do you resolve it?
Well, it's actually kind of funny because when I was leaving the forum in Ames, I had one of the protesters approach me. And I said, well, we actually have some openings and they're looking for help out there. We'd be more than happy to have you come out there and work. Oh, I don't want to do that kind of work.
Right.
So the jobs that they are claiming are being taken are jobs that they don't even want to do themselves, but yet they still want their steak in the grocery store to eat it. So, these guys are here to work. They're here to live just like the rest of us. And a lot of these places where communities was diminishing and everything else, they're revitalizing the way America used to be. I mean, you drive down a street and there's businesses and shops and everything else.
Yeah, look at that area just east of the state capitol along East Grand, East 16th. It's just hopping with lots of new businesses.
So they are right in the community along with the rest of us, and it's just it's no different than the immigrants from well before. I mean, there was a gentleman in the forum that said, "Hey, my ancestors didn't have to ask permission to come here; they just got on the boat and got here."
That's very true of my grandmother. She came, and my grandfather as well. They both came from Ireland, sailed out of Cork Harbor. In the mid-1920s, right around the time of the Civil War. It was a pretty awful situation, and they were hungry. There was no work. There was very little food. And, they just came, and they were welcomed at Ellis Island. And, I mean, actually, there were people who were there was anti-Irish sentiment then. There were signs posted in some businesses, Irish need not apply.
Exactly.
But we kind of moved beyond that, eventually electing an Irishman for president, John F. Kennedy. And Do you sense that we are moving beyond that anti-Latino immigrant bigotry that has, been fairly vitriolic in our country for a while?
I think so, and I think a lot of it has to do with the way that even the education process goes. I mean, even years ago when I was in school, when you're taught how Mexico is, you're thinking of dirt roads and adobe houses, and that these people live in squander, and There's areas in Mexico that are just as nice, if not nicer, than cities up here. And, these people, what they also don't realize is with NAFTA, it ruined the farmer in Mexico.
Oh, I know. Yes.
And that's why these people are coming here in droves. I mean, it ruined agriculture down there. They could not compete with the cheap corn prices coming from the United States down there. Right. And these people needed to find work.
Yeah, and our cheap corn prices are cheap because of the extensive subsidies that we lavish upon them. So
there you go.
Yeah, I don't know how that's fair.
Yep.
So you are, again, you're Steve King's district. My condolences.
Thank you.
My feeling is, again, people forget that Steve King only won the primary back in 2002 by 19 votes over a very moderate, reasonable, respected Republican, Brent Segrist. Now, Brent is no longer in that district. In fact, he's running for mayor of Council Bluffs. But my contention is, as much as I'd love to see a progressive Democrat win that seat, I don't see that happening. I mean, Democrats threw everything they had at Steve King with Christy Vilsack. Didn't happen.
Right.
My feeling is we need to recruit a Republican. I would even settle for a conservative Republican who doesn't throw his, doesn't shoot off his mouth like King does. Ideally, a moderate Republican. Surely there's got to be a Republican in that district who could challenge King in a primary, who I think would probably win if he or she ran a good campaign.
And I agree with you, and that's actually some of the approach we're looking at. Labor isn't it's not just the Democratic Party. We vote for the person and the candidate that's going to best support labor issues. I mean, even here in Woodbury County, we endorsed the Republican sheriff, and he's held to everything he said he was going to do for his people. And
well, would he consider running against King in the primary?
Oh, I wish he would. I mean, he's a heck of a man, and he definitely has some great views on how he views things. I mean, it's sure we have our political differences in some ways, but he's definitely a good person, and I would support him anytime.
Well, and I would, and I personally. I mean, I used to fight. Chris Rance and I got elected to the House the same year, and we hit it off. We hit it off the first day, and then it went downhill after that. But I would support him. I would be delighted to have Chris Rance as a congressman from Western Iowa compared to Steve King.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there.
So if you see Chris, tell him I think he should run for Congress. Anyway,
I'll do that. I don't see him much though.
But but I mean, but the truth is, King is out of step not just with the country as a whole, but even with his own constituents in a very conservative district. I mean, 65 to 68% of the people in that district feel differently about a pathway to citizenship than he does.
Well, and the sad reality of it is I mean, his record speaks for itself. I mean, Sioux City, Iowa is the largest city, I believe, in his district, if not the largest, close to it.
Yes, it is.
And, his attendance here is incredibly low. And he, the bills what he introduces is nothing.
Right.
And then when he is on TV, he's talking about national Republican rhetoric. It has nothing to do with what's going on here and everything else. He's more tied up in the things that are national Republican issues than what is actually going on in his district.
And even his rhetoric on those issues is out of step with what the leadership in that party wants to promote. I mean, he was chastised pretty severely by John Boehner. That doesn't happen too often. By Eric Cantor. I mean, other leading Republicans read him the riot act after this ridiculous comment about for every one valedictorian crossing the border, there are 100 smugglers. I mean, he's out of touch even with the conservative element of his own party. So anyway, I commend you all for putting together that rally, for holding him accountable, for the work you've done at trying to make it clear that labor is on the side of the new arrivals in this country.
We're here for them.
Great. And thanks again. Thanks so much for joining us, Nick. I really appreciate your input into the conversation.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Folks, we're going to take a short break. I want to thank Gateway Market and Cafe for sponsoring this segment of the Fallon Forum. They're at 20th and Woodland in the Sherman Hill neighborhood. A lot of the groceries you buy at Gateway Market come from local sources, farmers, producers, and you've also got a fantastic cafe for breakfast, lunch, and supper, and a catering service as well. I also want to thank Hawk Restaurant at East 5th and Walnut. 90% of the food, 90% of the food that they serve at Hawk Restaurant comes from Iowa farms. It's an incredible accomplishment that Suman and Cynthia Hawk have achieved, and the food itself is fantastic. Check them out, folks. They're open for lunch, supper, and also Sunday brunch. That's Hawk Restaurant in the East Village. I also want to thank Ritual Cafe, where I'm going to end up for a meeting after the show. Ritual has great paninis, tea, coffee, smoothies, and also live music on the weekends. Check them out, folks. That's Ritual Cafe. In 2 minutes, I'll be back with a new guest, Mandy Hillman, talking about the Improved Birth Rally coming up at the State House on Labor Day.
Concept Studios. This is Webcast One Live. Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey folks, back to the conversation here on the Fallon Forum today. Again, broadcasting live from the Webcast One studio downtown. I want to thank the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit for sponsoring this segment of our program. Yeah, you would have thought that would have made sense for a sponsor last segment. That's how it goes sometimes. Anyway, they're a great. It's a great event. I'll tell you more about it later in the segment. We are going to talk later about the as Rekha Basu calls it, the judicial interviews being an insult to women, and Governor Branstad's absolute silence on the issue. We're going to talk briefly about the war in Syria and save more of that conversation for next week. Eric Branstad in the news, not good for him. Jack Hatch in the news, okay for him. And the Des Moines Farmers Market gets a couple thumbs up from a national survey. And also the NFL, what's going on? Who knew that football could damage you? Okay, anyway, that's a really interesting story to my way of thinking. I rarely do I clip an article from the sports page to talk about on this program, but we'll do that. But first, big event coming up on Labor Day. When you think Labor Day, you think of work. Well, you might also want to think of labor as in birth. And there is an event coming up on long weekend, on Monday, Labor Day at the state capitol from 10 to noon. It's the Improved Birth Rally, and the intent is to get us understanding what we need to do individually and as a society to make birth a better experience for more and more women. Again, the one scandal I'm aware of is the fact that C-sections used to be 5 to 8% of all live births, and now they're 30 to 35%. That's a problem. And here to talk with us about the issues and about the event itself, Mandy Hillman and also Megan Desur. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So what's the motivation behind this? Again, this is, I know there are some annual events in Des Moines, like the Big Latch On. Mm-hmm. This is a new one.
Well, we did have this same rally last year. It's with improvingbirth.org.
Okay, I missed it last year.
Yeah, that's right. It was the first year that they did it. It was a national rally. It happened in, I think it was 110 cities last year, and about 10,000 people showed up to the rallies last year across the country, and Des Moines was one of them. We had about 100 people out. This year, it's already in 170 cities have scheduled locations, and it's actually international. So there's some sites happening internationally.
170 cities just in the U.S.
Just in the U.S.,
Okay.
yep.
So what is the focus? I mean, improving birth.
Yeah.
What do we mean by improving birth?
Yeah, we're all about what we're advocating for is bringing evidence-based care and humanity to childbirth. And so obviously by evidence-based care, we mean, practices that are based on, our scientific research showing that they're best outcomes for moms and babies. And obviously humanity, we're talking about respecting our bodies and respecting the women as being the decision makers in their childbirth experiences.
Yeah. Megan?
Absolutely. We are really just promoting evidence-based care. What that means is 9 out of 10 of our women currently receive care that increases the risks to both mom and baby.
Wait, 90% of women in childbirth receive care that increases risks to the health and well-being of the baby.
Standard practice. Yeah.
90%.
90%. 9 out of 10 women.
So what types of interventions are we talking about? What types of care?
Everything from being put in bed on your back, having an IV, electronic fetal monitoring, not being allowed food and drink during labor and delivery, as well as the induction rate, the rates of Pitocin, the rates of epidural use, and then the cesarean rates.
Yeah, which I mentioned.
Right, which you mentioned.
Yeah. So, but some OBs and maybe others would argue that some of those procedures, in some cases, are necessary.
And we agree.
Okay.
We're on the same page as that. I mean,
but they're being
certainly there are times that they are necessary. Yes.
But nowhere near as often. I mean, again, on the cesarean birth issue, the fact that it has gone up so much from 5% to 30 to 35%. I mean, what's caused that increase?
Well, bodies aren't broken. Women's bodies still know how to deliver a baby, just as their heart beats, blood passes through it. A woman's uterus also knows how to give birth. If we were to be hands off and step back and let women make educated decisions, we'd find that they're choosing safer care once they have full informed consent.
So, and why, again, specifically, why has the rate of cesareans gone up so much?
I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. There's not one easy explanation. There's a lot of evidence that would suggest that, profits, convenience, liability, all of those factors are definitely playing a role in what has become standard practice and how we're doing birth in this country, how it's being conducted.
Is liability and fear of a malpractice suit one of the motivators behind the high rate?
Certainly. I mean, it's one. I mean, again, there's a lot, but it certainly is not one to ignore. Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have partners organizing this with you?
Iowa Birth Organization has taken the lead to lead the Improved Birth Rally here in Des Moines. We also have a group that will lead a rally in Iowa City and then one over in Omaha as well. Iowa Birth Organization is an umbrella organization that all birth groups can fall under. We really just want to promote the message that women deserve evidence-based care. Women have the right to make informed consent and choices. They also have the right to know what the risks and benefits are, as well as the alternatives. And Iowa Birth Organization's mission is to improve care for women throughout our great state here.
Yeah. I had an interesting conversation recently. A couple gentlemen, both progressive, both knowledgeable on healthcare. And I mentioned an instance that a friend of mine had just brought to my attention a couple weeks ago. She had delivered 3 babies, all healthy. No problem. Didn't need any Pitocin or any other artificial interventions. And she overheard on the 4th child. She overheard the doctor. This is like 20 years ago. Overheard the doctor and nurse talking about the doctor's desire to get out to the lake that day. I mean, and this wasn't like. I mean, he was on call that weekend. He was supposed to be working that weekend. He was on call. Should not have been expecting to get out to the lake, but prescribed Pitocin specifically so he could speed it up and get out and have his fun.
Unfortunately,
and she heard this and she knows it. She said she got her revenge by taking 12 hours even after the Pitocin was administered. But I mean, I asked my male friends. I said, so why is that not a malpractice claim? And they said, well, nobody was damaged. And I'm like, what? How is that not a damage? I mean, how would you? I mean, I assume that you would kind of concur that there is some damage involved in a decision like that.
Well, certainly, first of all, unfortunately, those stories are not rare anymore. I mean, we are hearing women we're hearing these stories on a daily basis. It's not uncommon, and that's a problem. I mean, that's an indication of a problem, and that's where, again, we're talking about profit, convenience, liability, driving some of what we're doing instead of our science. looking at damage in that respect, it's what's the damage that's done to the woman by being told that there's something wrong with you and we need to give you something.
Sure, right.
I mean, that's something that we can't measure on a scale very well.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some ways to look at that psychological stuff, and we see higher rates of postpartum depression, higher rates of PTSD in our country. Those are some great examples of a reason of why that's happened. I mean, ultimately, she was kind of told, we're going to make your body work better than it already does.
Well, in this case, it wasn't even we're going to make you work better. We're going to help you through this. It's like I'm looking at my watch. I want to go to the lake. My recreation is more important than you delivering a child.
Where's the value? Where's the value in this woman and her experience?
To me, I'm surprised we don't see more lawsuits based on that kind of behavior.
Our Iowa statistics show that in the hospitals, our babies are born Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. The rate of cesareans increase at 5 p.m. And why? We look at our midwives and say, well, what time are your babies born? And they say nights, weekends. Our babies come anytime they want to.
I live next to a midwife clinic. A wall separates me from the birthing room. I can vouch for that. There are a lot of babies born at 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
And that's completely normal. But within the medical field, at the hospitals, most babies come between 9 and 5 a.m. Because there is a schedule, and it's really unfortunate, and women don't have to do that anymore.
Is there room for a class action lawsuit here? I mean, I'm not one of these people who love lawsuits and love a litigious society, but at some point, maybe that's how you get their attention and get them to start.
Well, and I think what's happening here is this huge piece, and it's been a long time coming, that the kind of the what I like to kind of call the slogan of the American maternity care system has been, as long as you have a healthy baby, that's all that matters. And women are all too happy. I mean, we know it. We've never heard any other slogan, any other catchphrase. So I was healthy enough for a hospital discharge, and so was my baby. Therefore, it's okay, is what we're told. It's all that matters.
Right, no
and so
damages.
Nobody was damaged. No damage.
Yeah.
And so I think that the problem is a bigger societal systemic problem here of like not even thinking to question that, not even thinking to question our care, because, and that's what we're about here, is getting the information out here saying 9 out of 10 women receive care that increases rather than decreases their risks of harm to them and baby. And I think women go, what? I'm probably one of 9 in 10, right? I don't think our society, I don't think women know that. And that's what we're all about, is getting that information to the consumer, because I think that that's what's going to change it. I think that's what's going to drive change.
Yeah, so what do you hope comes out of the rally on Monday, Megan?
Well, we're hoping that more women, number one, hear about our movement. This doesn't come from political change. This doesn't come from the top down. This kind of action has to start from the bottom up. This has to start with women and the men that care about them. They have to stand up and say, this is not okay for my wife, my family, and my baby anymore. So number one, outreach is our number one goal at this point. Women that don't know their choices really have no choices. So our goal, again, is to say, here are your options, here are your choices, here's what the research indicates.
Make your own decision.
Now, you are competing with the Labor Day Parade.
And it's a big one, and we love them too.
Okay.
We do love them too. But women, this traditionally, we've done midwifery events and other kinds of birth rallies on Labor Day, and that's kind of our day too.
Oh, it sure makes sense. I mean, I know it's a bit of a pun, but yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And right here in Iowa, the new 2012 cesarean rates have just come out. And we have a couple of hospitals in the state that are nearly 50% of women having a cesarean.
Which ones?
Do you want me to call them out?
I don't mind. I love truth and transparency.
The World Health Organization recommends a cesarean rate of no higher than 15%. So
I thought it was like 5 to 8. 15?
Well, I mean, it's 15 or less. Yeah, okay. 15 is kind of the highest number that you'll see people saying, because after that, we actually start to see more harm than good. So just to put that in perspective.
Wow.
Some of our rates, 50% is too high. Women's bodies have not changed. Women's bodies are not broken, nor are their uteruses typically damaged.
But apparently some hospitals are, at least in their...
Thank you for saying that, Ed. Yes, apparently some kinds of care is not conducive to a happy, healthy mama in the end.
Call them out. Which hospitals are at 50%?
Well, this year, right now, Hardin County Ellsworth Municipal Hospital is the worst in our state. The second is Lakes Regional Healthcare in Dickinson, and unfortunately, as I hang my head in shame, Marion County Knoxville Hospital and Clinics.
Is that where you're from?
That's where I'm from.
All right. Well,
and these rates change yearly, but when you're looking at 1 out of 2 women, that's not okay.
It's good that you called them out, and it's also, I mean, it's, ideally there are conversations to be had, and information to be processed and decisions to be made and changes to be implemented. And then you're going to see that rate come down, hopefully. I mean, hopefully this isn't because of some arrogance and some unwillingness to really look at the facts and to recognize what you have said a couple times about women's bodies not being broken. Y'all can handle this. I can't. You can.
And we have women that will show up to a hospital with a birth plan, and the running joke with the birth plan at the hospital is the doctors and nurses automatically sign her up for a cesarean. And when women are accessing, or when women are using their voices and educating themselves and say, this is what I'd really like to have happen, and then they're completely dismissed. There's no human dignity in that.
Right.
There's no respect in the care in that as either. But the more informed you are, the more choices you actually have.
Yeah. Well, great. I look forward to a successful event. I've been putting it on my website. Hopefully,
Thank you
some
very
people have
much.
found it there, and we'll continue to talk about it. Is there a specific place people might go, Mindy, to get information?
Yeah. So about the rallies, definitely go to rally2improvebirth.com, and you can find rallies all over, like I said, all over the globe. All the locations would be there. Specifically to connect with us, Iowa Birth Organization, you could go to iowabirth.org, or you could find us on Facebook, Iowa Birth
So
Organization.
rally2improvebirth.com.
Yep.
Or the other one?
And our personal Iowa Birth Organization is iowabirth.org.
iowabirth.org. Okay.
Yeah.
Mandy Hillman and Megan Desur, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
I
you
hope
so
it
much for
cools
having
off
us.
a little bit on Monday.
It's supposed to be 80, beautiful. Come and join us. We're going to have a lot of people out there just
Great.
talking, selling some stuff, fun stuff.
We have vendors
Local
this
people,
year.
I think
vendors,
you can actually
info
see.
booths.
Can't you actually see the parade from the rally site?
We couldn't last year.
No?
I don't
Okay,
think
not
so. I
quite.
think they're on the other side.
They're on the
Anyway.
east side, and we're on the west side.
Oh,
so
okay. At any rate, it's a great event and a
Thank
really
you.
important one. And I hope people turn out in droves.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your
Thank you.
support, Ed.
Sure. Thank you. Folks, when we come back, I got a few more issues to cover today. Eric Branstad in trouble again. Jack Hatch running for governor, for sure. Joining Bob Kraus and Tyler Olson on the Democratic ticket. Also, I'm just still scratching my head about the folks on the Judicial Commission who think it's okay to ask nominees, and all, of course, female nominees, whether they have a covenant marriage and what they do when they're going out looking for a church to join. Just bizarre questions. We're going to talk about that a little bit today as well. I got some more things I'd love to cover. I want to talk about this NFL settlement, but you know what? We might have to save some of this for next week. At any rate, we'll be back in just a couple minutes on the Fallon Forum.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I am administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to the Fallon Forum. Hey, other stuff happening that might be of interest tonight. Edgar Rosa is having an event hosted for him at the Whitmer House. That's formerly the governor's mansion. Edgar is a young man who is, as part of his master's program, has produced a film called Son of a Barman. It has an Irish theme, so of course I have tremendous interest. But there is information about this film, and the event is supported. It's going to be tonight at 5 p.m. And the information about it you can find on the Fallon Forum website. Gosh, so many things happening. Anyway, I'm going to run through some things really, really quick here. War in Syria is not the answer. A good editorial today, good opinion piece by Bob Brammer and others, just laying out why President Obama would be really mistaken to initiate a military strike on Syria. Again, recognizing the fact too that what has happened there is horrible. I mean, it is unthinkable what has happened there. But there's a response that doesn't involve going in there with both barrels blazing. And this is an issue that might have where there might be both Republican and Democratic opposition, to the extent where President Obama will have to rethink his interest in engaging in that conflict. We shall see. Anyway, it's we're going to talk more about that next week when Jeff Weiss with the Catholic Peace Ministry joins us. Okay, so Eric Branstad. Eric Branstad, the son of Terry Branstad, the one who back in the 90s was driving drunk, killed 2 people, got a $35 fine. Well, he's at it again. He was sued by Associated Anesthesiologists for not paying a medical bill, which he ignored. He also ignored. He was found guilty because he ignored it. You know, you don't ever show up, and you get found guilty by default. So he also continued to ignore any demands for payment. And the day after that story ran, and it might have run in City View because this is in City View. The day after that story ran, it was reported that the bill, quote, has been paid in full and and the debt satisfied. Anyway, I wonder who paid that, and I wonder if it had anything to do with the fact that it suddenly went public. All right, the number of people lining up to take a shot at Terry Branstad from the Democratic side of the aisle has grown by one. Well, I mean, it's really no surprise. We knew Jack Hatch was running. Now he's made it official. He's launching a gubernatorial campaign. He and Bob Kraus and State Representative Tyler Olson. It should be interesting. I don't know where this is going to go. We hope to continue to have dialogue with these candidates on this program. All have been invited to come on this program. Jack Hatch has appeared on the show a couple times. So has Bob Kraus. Have not yet heard from Tyler Olson. And that bugs me a bit, because I think it's important for people who are running for office to take the time to share their perspective with audiences such as this. You're a great audience. Okay, so good news: Des Moines Farmers Market drawing some national recognition. The let's see, who did the survey? I'm not finding it. But a survey was done. Daily Meal. It's a website dedicated to culinary content. They did an analysis of 101 farmers markets across the country, and Des Moines, second place. I am offended. I cannot believe that we weren't first place. I'm really offended. But still, second place is pretty good. First was the Pike Place Farmers Market in Seattle. Okay, the reason that they got first and we got second is they got fresh flying fish. Okay, so if we had fresh flying fish from the Des Moines, maybe if we started selling carp, I don't know. Anyways, hats off to the Des Moines Farmers Market for finishing second place, ahead of Chicago's Green City Market, ahead of the Phoenix Public Market, and ahead of St. Paul's Farmers Market. Omaha was sixth on the list. So good stuff. All right. Yeah, I just briefly, the NFL lawsuit. The NFL, I had not heard of this. This is news to me. The NFL has agreed to pay $765 million to settle lawsuits from thousands of former NFL players who developed dementia or other concussion-related health problems that they claim were caused by their injuries, by the stuff they've got to do on the field, by the hits they took. The settlement is unprecedented in sports. Yeah, I'll say. Again, there are more than 4,500 former players, some of them suffering from Alzheimer's, some depression, and they've accused the NFL, this is the part I don't get, of concealing the long-term dangers of concussions. I would think that we would know, beyond whatever the NFL had to say about it, that there are some long-term dangers relevant to concussions. You don't want to do that to yourself. I would think we would know that bashing your head against the heads of other guys who weigh 400 pounds is probably not a good thing for you, either in the short term or the long term. So I don't know. Again, this article does not tell you anywhere near enough. It goes on to specify that the settlement applies to all past NFL players and spouses of the deceased, and that group could total more than 20,000. It's going to cost the NFL nearly $1 billion, and the vast majority of that would go to compensate retirees with certain neurological ailments plus plaintiff's attorney fees, and the plaintiff's fees could top $100 million. Well, I'm surprised lawyers aren't scoring more out of that deal. Football's bad for you. Okay, I don't know how else to say it. I know so many people who played football in their young years who are messed up. Maybe it's not with depression or Alzheimer's or neurological disorders. It's with bad backs. It's with bad knees. I mean, I remember talking to Wayne Ford. Wayne Ford had a heck of a time getting around because of his football injuries. We served together at the State House. I remember talking to a lot of other people who as the years go by, the effects of those continued slamming into someone else, it just adds up. So and what bothers me, I wonder if I don't know if there's a way to make football safe. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe you can't make football safe and still make it football. I don't know, but I think something should be done. At a minimum, I'd like to see us stop making football such a making such a high priority to really young kids. I mean, peewee football. Come on, really? Do kids need to be doing that? Is that a good idea? When your bones are still forming, you're still developing, and we're putting that on them. And I don't know. Maybe people disagree with me, but I just think there's something to be said for a little bit more restraint and a hard look at what kind of rules should be in place. And maybe there's some sports. Now I'm going to speak absolute heresy. Maybe there are some sports that really shouldn't happen. I mean, there are sports now that we don't do because they were considered barbaric. We no longer have, as they did in ancient Rome, gladiators coming out into a stadium and ramming their spears through Christians or whatever group you want to pick to malign in today's era. We no longer do that. That was ruled inappropriate. There are other sports where there are certain things that are in it. Well, it used to be that you played football without helmets. So, at some point we got to say, okay, is this something we really want to encourage? Is this a good thing? when you end up having a lawsuit that lands over $1 billion and you have 4,500 former players, I mean, I don't know how many former players are there, and 4,500 of them have some kind of ailment relevant to their years playing the sport. You know, you got to ask, is this a good thing? I don't know. Anyway, it's not. I'm much more sophisticated. I like baseball anyway. But anyway, all right. I probably just. You a big football fan, Maddie? No, she's not. Okay, well, she's un-American too, I guess. Anyway, this is a good. This article is a good starting point for a conversation of a much deeper level. Anyway, another issue of interest to women and anyone who cares about equality for women is what happened, what transpired at the Judicial Nominating Commission's meeting recently. And Ray Gabassa wrote a great column about this today too. You know, these questions that are being asked, you know, what is your, you know, do you have a covenant marriage? I mean, that was asked of Jeannie Vout. She's an assistant Iowa attorney. She's, again, one of the judges who've been nominated, or one of the attorneys who have been nominated. And Commissioner Scott Bailey asked her if she and her husband have, quote, a covenant marriage. And you know what covenant marriage means? I mean, I remember that term at the State House a lot. It was the Christian right concept of going somehow, making your marriage better than an average marriage by signing additional, you know, papers and making additional commitments. That should just be par for the course. But it was, it's a specifically Christian thing. And so she was asked if they had a covenant marriage, a Christian marriage. And again, not just any Christian marriage, but a Christian marriage of the conservative, evangelical, fundamentalist perspective. She was asked that as part of her, you know, part of her interview. You know, it's so inappropriate. Another candidate was asked how she would how she goes about finding a church. You know, what does she do when she wants to find a church? How does that have anything to do with their capacity to serve as a judge? And beyond that, it's inconsistent with the guidelines that are presented in the material that you're supposed to follow. It amazes me that they got away with that. Well, actually, they probably haven't. They haven't got away with it because we're talking about it. A lot of people are talking about it. Who's not talking about it is Governor Branstad, partly because he appointed these people, partly because he probably agrees that those are appropriate questions. But at least we can point to the rules and say, you may think it's appropriate, Governor Branstad, and the people you appointed to this commission might think it's appropriate, but the rules that have been approved by both Republicans and Democrats say otherwise. So maybe it'd be time for the governor to step up and say, okay, either we need to change the rules so it's okay to ask people about their religious affiliation and their covenant marriage and whatnot, or we should admit that it's not right and make it really clear to the members of that commission that they should not be doing this in the future. Anyway, folks, that's it for another week here on the Fallon Forum. I want to thank all of my sponsors. I want to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility, and the Great March for Climate Action. I want to thank all the great businesses that help make this show possible as well. Gateway Market and Cafe in Sherman Hill neighborhood. You know, keep your grocery money right here in the community, folks. No need to ship it down to Austin, Texas. We've got great grocery stores right here. And in some cases, like with Gateway, they buy a lot of their food from local sources and provide a very, very healthy selection. I also want to thank Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering in Beaverdale, Hawk Restaurant in the East Village, Fighting Burritos at 13th and Locust in Des Moines, and 117 Welch Ave in Ames. Great custom-made burritos for very affordable prices. Again, I want to thank our Newton supporters, Dan Kelly. Dan Kelly's got a real estate business. In addition to being a state rep, he also operates a DJ business. His mother, Diana, owns Diana's Wedding Cakes. Again, not just wedding cakes, but wedding cupcakes, cookies, and all sorts of stuff. And again, not just for weddings. I also want to thank Kim Holding and Story County Veterinary Clinic in Ames. Again, thank you, Maddie Kane, my producer. Thanks, Webcast One Live. Folks, have a great 3-day Labor Day weekend.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.